I married the wrong person. Here's how I found out. I'm a 32-year-old guy living in a mid-sized town in the Midwest, working a regular job that pays the bills and keeps me just busy enough to feel like my life is in motion. I'm not dramatic, not impulsive, not the kind of person who starts fights or digs for trouble. I'm usually the one smoothing things over. So when my marriage started slipping sideways, I kept trying to tell myself it wasn't as bad as it looked. I just didn't know yet that I'd married someone who believed the world owed her comfort, admiration, and a lifestyle she hadn't earned. The first real crack showed up one Saturday morning that was supposed to be totally normal. I was at the kitchen table working on some receipts from a home repair project while my wife scrolled her phone, bored out of her mind. She suddenly asked if she could borrow a large chunk of money from my personal savings account. Not our joint account, the one in my name that I'd been building long before we got married. When I told her no and asked why she needed it, she got defensive so fast it almost threw me off. She said she felt like I didn't trust her, which wasn't an answer to anything. A couple days later, I checked my bank notifications and saw 2 failed attempts to access that same account. My stomach dropped. It wasn't the money, it was the audacity. When I asked her about it, she acted annoyed, like I'd interrupted something important. She said, "You're so dramatic. I just needed to see something." That's when the first little warning light flashed in my brain. 2 weeks after that, I found the plane tickets. Round trip, Miami, 1 hotel room, 2 passengers. I pulled them out of her purse, thinking maybe they were old, or maybe I just completely misunderstood. But they were for the following week. And they weren't booked with her credit card. They were booked with our joint one. I asked her about it while she was making coffee, and she barely looked up. She said, "It's a work trip," in the flattest voice imaginable, like I'd asked her why she bought toothpaste. When I pressed, she got irritated. She wouldn't say who she was going with, what the purpose was. Nothing. She wouldn't even admit she was hiding anything. She acted like I was being unreasonable for even asking. I asked her directly if she was cheating. She didn't deny it. She just said, "Don't need to know every detail of my life." That sentence felt like a punch wrapped in a shrug. I walked out of the house that evening and just sat in my car until I felt like I could think straight again. The next morning, I called a lawyer before work. I wasn't filing anything yet. I just needed to know if I was imagining things, or if this was what it looked like. I explained the weird money requests, the access attempts, the plane tickets, the sudden coldness that came out of nowhere. He didn't sugarcoat anything. He told me to start documenting everything, every charge, every message, every attempt at accessing funds. He explained dissipation of assets and how it mattered in divorce cases. He didn't push me to file, but he made it clear that things were heading in that direction, whether I wanted them to or not. Meanwhile, back at home, my wife acted like I'd become the villain in her personal story. She stopped pretending to be decent. She'd sleep with her phone under her pillow. She stayed out late and refused to say with who. She'd take calls in other rooms, whispering or stepping outside entirely. Every time I asked a basic question, she said something like, "Stop trying to control me," or "You're suffocating me," or "I deserve happiness too." One night, she came home in a dress I'd never seen and wouldn't tell me where she'd been. She walked straight to the shower and left water puddles all the way to the bedroom. When I asked if she even wanted to stay in this marriage, she said she didn't want to start over financially. Not emotionally, not personally, financially. That was the moment the last piece of denial inside me finally snapped. I spent the next couple weeks quietly preparing. I moved half my savings to a single account on my lawyer's advice. I organized every document she'd never bothered to look at. I collected proof. I stayed calm, even when she wasn't. She thought my silence meant she was winning. Really, it meant she was underestimating me at the exact perfect time. Her behavior escalated fast. She didn't even try to hide she was going out with someone else. She walked in late, smelled like bars or cologne that wasn't mine, stopped wearing her wedding ring, and talked down to me like I was an inconvenience. Then she crossed a line I knew she'd eventually reach. She tried taking money again, without asking, without explaining. I got home one day to find the living room completely ransacked, drawers open, papers everywhere. She said she was looking for something, and made it clear she thought I was hiding money from her. She didn't deny it. She didn't apologize. She said, "You're not going to keep me trapped," with this entitled tone like she was fighting for her freedom, instead of tearing through my things like a tornado. 2 mornings later, while I was shaving, she walked in and demanded $2,000 for her trip. When I said no, she said she'd take it one way or another. That was it. I filed the next morning. She was served 2 days later. The look on her face when the process server handed her the envelope was almost surreal. Confused, angry, then shocked that I'd actually taken action instead of just absorbing everything like I always had. She tried to spin it into me overreacting or punishing her. Then she tried guilt. Then she tried yelling. Then she tried acting like she suddenly wanted to talk. But I wasn't buying any version of her anymore. A week later, she filed a response accusing me of emotional manipulation, which my lawyer said was a common move when people panic and try to flip the script. We went to the temporary hearing shortly after. She showed up putting on this whole helpless, heartbroken act. But the evidence didn't care about her theatrics. The judge saw the plane tickets, the attempts to access my account, the charges for items she clearly bought for someone else, the message patterns, the timeline, everything carefully organized. By the end of the hearing, the judge granted me temporary exclusive use of the house, froze the joint accounts, and restricted her ability to move money around. She tried filing a protective order the day before she was supposed to move out, claiming I'd been emotionally aggressive. It was dismissed within hours due to lack of evidence and suspicious timing. She tried dragging her relatives into it, painting herself as the victim. That lasted until I showed them the plane tickets, which she conveniently forgot to mention existed. 3 days before she had to leave, she said she talked to someone who told her she didn't have to move until the final hearing. She clearly didn't read the court order because it specifically said she had 10 days. When she realized she'd cornered herself, she got even more bitter but started packing anyway. While she packed, she left a stack of documents on the counter, including a contract for her so-called business trip. It included reimbursement claims and several purchases that had already been shipped to another guy's address. I gave everything to my lawyer. He said it strengthened the dissipation argument and would significantly affect how assets were divided, the final stages of the case. The court reviewed all financial documents. Her attempt to take money and her purchases for another relationship did exactly what my lawyer predicted. They shifted the asset division in my favor. The judge ruled that the debt she created was hers alone. I received a larger share of assets. She was denied alimony due to misconduct and her lack of contribution. She had to cover her own relocation expenses. It was all clean, all legal, all exactly within the system she assumed would protect her. Outside the courtroom, she told me I'd ruined her life. I told her she did that on her own, and I'd simply stopped enabling it. After the ruling, she sent a long text blaming me, apologizing, begging, promising to change, insisting the other person didn't mean anything, and saying we could rebuild. I didn't answer. The divorce finalized not long after that. She left town a few weeks later. When everything was over, I sat in my house, and felt this quiet sense of clarity. Not joy, not relief, just the kind of calm you get when a storm ends and you realize how loud it had been the whole time. I didn't come out wiser or softer. I just learned that when someone shows entitlement as their default setting, the moment they think you won't leave is the moment they stop pretending to be decent. People reveal themselves when they believe they won't face consequences. And once you see that version of them, there's no going back to the story you try to believe. Anyway, if you stuck around for this whole disaster, go ahead and hit subscribe. At this point, my personal life might as well be its own entertainment